Numbers, chapter 1. In the year following that of the Israelites' departure from the land of Egypt, on the first day of the second month, the Lord said to Moses in the meeting tent in the desert of Sinai, "Take a census of the whole community of the Israelites by clans and ancestral houses, registering each male individually. You and Aaron shall enroll in companies all the men in Israel of 20 years or more who are fit for military service. To assist you, there shall be a man from each tribe, the head of his ancestral house. These are the names of those who are to assist you. From Reuben, Elizur, son of Shedeur; from Simeon, Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai; from Judah, Nahshon, son of Amminadab; from Issachar, Nethanel, son of Zuar; from Zebulun, Eliab, son of Helon; from Ephraim, Elishama, son of Ammihud; and from Manasseh, Gamaliel, son of Pedazur, for the descendants of Joseph; from Benjamin, Abidan, son of Gideoni; from Dan, Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai; from Asher, Pagiel, son of Okran; from Gad, Eliasaph, son of Reuel; from Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. These were counselors of the community, princes of their ancestral tribes, chiefs of the troops of Israel. So Moses and Aaron took these men who had been designated and assembled the whole community on the first day of the second month. Every man of 20 years or more then declared his name and lineage according to clan and ancestral house, as the Lord had commanded Moses. This is their census as taken in the desert of Sinai. Of the descendants of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 46,500 were enrolled in the tribe of Reuben. Of the descendants of Simeon, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 59,300 were enrolled in the tribe of Simeon. Of the descendants of Gad, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 45,650 were enrolled in the tribe of Gad. Of the descendants of Judah, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 74,600 were enrolled in the tribe of Judah. Of the descendants of Issachar, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 54,400 were enrolled in the tribe of Issachar. Of the descendants of Zebulun, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 57,400 were enrolled in the tribe of Zebulun. Of the descendants of Joseph, of the descendants of Ephraim, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses. When all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 40,500 were enrolled in the tribe of Ephraim. Of the descendants of Manasseh, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses, when all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 32,200 were enrolled in the tribe of Manasseh. Of the descendants of Benjamin, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses, when all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 35,400 were enrolled in the tribe of Benjamin. of the descendants of Dan, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses, when all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 62,700 were enrolled in the tribe of Dan. Of the descendants of Asher, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses, when all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 41,500 were enrolled in the tribe of Asher. Of the descendants of Naphtali, registered by lineage in clans and ancestral houses, when all the males of 20 years or more who were fit for military service were polled, 53,400 were enrolled in the tribe of Naphtali. It was these who were registered, each according to his ancestral house, in the census taken by Moses and Aaron and the 12 princes of Israel. The total number of the Israelites of 20 years or more who were fit for military service, registered by ancestral houses, was 603,550. The Levites, however, were not registered by ancestral tribe with the others. For the Lord had told Moses, "The tribe of Levi alone you shall not enroll nor include in the census along with the other Israelites. You are to give the Levites charge of the dwelling of the commandments with all its equipment and all that belongs to it. It is they who shall carry the dwelling with all its equipment and who shall be its ministers. They shall therefore camp around the dwelling. When the dwelling is to move on, the Levites shall take it down. When the dwelling is to be pitched, it is the Levites who shall set it up. Any layman who comes near it shall be put to death, while the other Israelites shall camp by companies, each in his own division of the camp. The Levites shall camp around the dwelling of the commandments. Otherwise, God's wrath will strike the Israelite community. The Levites then shall have charge of the dwelling of the commandments. All this the Israelites fulfilled as the Lord had commanded Moses. Numbers chapter 2. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "The Israelites shall camp, each in his own division, under the ensigns of their ancestral houses. They shall camp around the meeting tent, but at some distance from it. Encamped on the east side toward the sunrise shall be the divisional camp of Judah, arranged in companies. The prince of the Judahites was Nahshon, son of Amminadab, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 74,600. With Judah shall camp the tribe of Issachar. Their prince was Nethanel, son of Zuar, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 54,400. And the tribe of Zebulun. Their prince was Eliab, son of Helon, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 57,400. The total number of those registered by companies in the camp of Judah was 186,400. These shall be first on the march. On the south side shall be the divisional camp of Reuben, arranged in companies. Their prince was Elizur, son of Shedeur, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 46,500. Beside them shall camp the tribe of Simeon. Their prince was Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 59,300. And next, the tribe of Gad. Their prince was Eliasaph, son of Roel, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 45,650. The total number of those registered by companies in the camp of Reuben was 151,450. These shall be second on the march. Then The meeting tent and the camp of the Levites shall set out in the middle of the line. As in camp, so also on the march, every man shall be in his proper place with his own division. On the west side shall be the divisional camp of Ephraim, arranged in companies. Their prince was Elishama, son of Ammihud, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 40,500. Beside them shall camp the tribe of Manasseh. Their prince was Gamaliel, son of Pedazur, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 32,200. And the tribe of Benjamin, their prince was Abidan, son of Gideoni, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 35,400. The total number of those registered by companies in the camp of Ephraim was 108,100. These shall be served on the march. On the north side shall be the divisional camp of Dan, arranged in companies. Their prince was Ahasa, son of Ammishaddai, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 62,700. Beside them shall camp the tribe of Asher. Their prince was Pagiel, son of Okran, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 41,500. And next, the tribe of Naphtali. Their prince was Ahira, son of Enan, and his soldiers amounted in the census to 53,400. The total number of those registered by companies in the camp of Dan was 157,600. These shall be the last of the divisions on the march. This was the census of the Israelites taken by ancestral houses. The total number of those registered by companies in the camps was 603,550. The Levites, however, were not registered with the other Israelites, for so the Lord had commanded Moses. The Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Both in camp and on the march, they were in their own divisions, every man according to his clan and his ancestral house. Numbers chapter 3. The following were the descendants of Aaron and Moses at the time that the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, his firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, who were ordained to exercise the priesthood. But when Nadab and Abihu offered profane fire before the Lord in the desert of Sinai, they met death in the presence of the Lord and left no sons. Thereafter, only Eleazar and Ithamar performed the priestly functions under the direction of their father Aaron. Now the Lord said to Moses, "Summon the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest as his assistants. They shall discharge his obligations and those of the whole community before the meeting tent by serving at the dwelling. They shall have custody of all the furnishings of the meeting tent and discharge the duties of the Israelites in the service of the dwelling. You shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They have been set aside from among the Israelites as dedicated to me. But only Aaron and his descendants shall you appoint to have charge of the priestly functions. Any layman who comes near shall be put to death." The Lord said to Moses, "It is I who have chosen the Levites from the Israelites, in place of every firstborn that opens the womb among the Israelites. The Levites therefore are mine, because every firstborn is mine. When I slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I made all the firstborn in Israel sacred to me, both of man and of beast. They belong to me. I am the Lord." The Lord said to Moses in the desert of Sinai, "Take a census of the Levites by ancestral houses and clans, registering every male of a month or more. Moses therefore took their census in accordance with the command the Lord had given him. The sons of Levi were named Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The descendants of Gershon by clans were named Libni and Shimei. The descendants of Kohath by clans were Amram, Ijah, Hebron, and Uzziel. The descendants of Merari by clans were Mahli and Mushi. These were the clans of the Levites by ancestral houses. To Gershon belonged the clan of the Libnites and the clan of the Shimeites. These were the clans of the Gershonites. When all their males of a month or more were registered, they numbered 7,500. The clans of the Gershonites camped behind the dwelling, to the west. The prince of their ancestral house was Eliasaph, son of Lael. At the meeting tent, they had charge of whatever pertained to the dwelling, the tent and its covering, the curtain at the entrance of the meeting tent, the hangings of the court, the curtain at the entrance of the court enclosing both the dwelling and the altar, and the ropes. To Kohath belonged the clans of the Amramites, the Ijarites, the Hebronites, and the Uzzielites. These were the clans of the Kohathites. When all their males of a month or more were registered, they numbered 8,300. They had charge of the sanctuary. The clans of the Kohathites camped at the south side of the dwelling. The prince of their ancestral house was Elizaphan, son of Uzziel. They had charge of whatever pertained to the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the utensils with which the ministry of the sanctuary was exercised, and the veil. The chief prince of the Levites, however, was Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest. He was supervisor over those who had charge of the sanctuary. To Merari belonged the clans of the Mahlites and the Mushites. These were the clans of Merari. When all their males of a month or more were registered, they numbered 6,200. The prince of the ancestral house of the clans of Merari was Zuriel, son of Abihail. They camped at the north side of the dwelling. The Merarites were charged with the care of whatever pertained to the boards of the dwelling, its bars, columns, pedestals, and all its fittings, as well as the columns of the surrounding court with their pedestals, pegs, and ropes. East of the dwelling, that is, in front of the meeting tent toward the sunrise, were camped Moses and Aaron and the latter's sons. They discharged the obligations of the sanctuary for the Israelites. Any layman who came near was to be put to death. The total number of male Levites, a month old or more, whom Moses had registered by clans in keeping with the Lord's command, was 22,000. The Lord then said to Moses, "Take a census of all the firstborn males of the Israelites, a month old or more, and compute their total number. Then assign the Levites to me, the Lord, in place of all the firstborn of the Israelites, as well as their cattle, in place of all the firstborn among the cattle of the Israelites." So Moses took a census of all the firstborn of the Israelites, as the Lord had commanded him. When all the firstborn males of a month or more were registered, they numbered 22,273. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the Levites in place of all the firstborn of the Israelites, and the Levites' cattle in place of their cattle, that the Levites may belong to me. I am the Lord. As ransom for the 273 firstborn of the Israelites who outnumber the Levites, you shall take 5 shekels for each individual, according to the standard of the sanctuary shekel, the 20 gerahs to the shekel. Give this silver to Aaron and his sons as ransom for the extra number." So Moses took the silver as ransom from those who were left when the rest had been redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the Israelites, he received in silver 1,365 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard. He then gave this ransom silver to Aaron and his sons, as the Lord had commanded him. Numbers chapter 4. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Among the Levites, take a total of the Kohathites by clans and ancestral houses, all the men of the Kohathites between 30 and 50 years of age. These are to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. The service of the Kohathites in the meeting tent concerns the most sacred objects. In breaking camp, Aaron and his sons shall go in and take down the screening curtain and cover the ark of the commandments with it. Over these they shall put a cover of tahash skin, and on top of this spread an all-violet cloth. They shall then put the poles in place. On the table of the presence they shall spread a violet cloth, and put on it the plates and cups, as well as the bowls and pitchers for libations. The established bread offering shall remain on the table. Over these they shall spread a scarlet cloth, and cover all this with tahash skin. They shall then put the poles in place. They shall use a violet cloth to cover the lampstand with its lamps, trimming shears, and trays, as well as the various containers of oil from which it is supplied. The lampstand with all its utensils they shall then enclose in a covering of tahash skin and place on a litter. Over the golden altar they shall spread a violet cloth, and cover this also with a covering of tahash skin. They shall then put the poles in place. Taking the utensils of the sanctuary service, they shall wrap them all in violet cloths and cover them with tahash skin. They shall then place them on a litter. After cleansing the altar of its ashes, they shall spread a purple cloth over it. On this they shall put all the utensils with which it is served, the firepans, forks, shovels, basins, and all the utensils of the altar. They shall then spread a covering of tahash skin over this, and put the poles in place. Only after Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sacred objects and all their utensils on breaking camp, shall the Kohathites enter to carry them. But they shall not touch the sacred objects. If they do, they will die. These, then, are the objects in the meeting tent that the Kohathites shall carry. Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, shall be in charge of the oil for the light, the fragrant incense, the established cereal offering, and the anointing oil. He shall be in charge of the whole dwelling with all the sacred objects and utensils that are in it. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Do not let the group of Kohathite clans perish from the body of the Levites, that they may live and not die when they approach the most sacred objects. This is what you shall do for them. Aaron and his sons shall go in and assign to each of them his task and what he must carry. But the Kohathites shall not go in to look upon the sacred objects even for an instant. If they do, they will die." The Lord said to Moses, "Take a total among the Gershonites also by ancestral houses and clans of all the men between 30 and 50 years of age. These are to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. This is the task of the clans of the Gershonites, what they must do and what they must carry. They shall carry the sheets of the dwelling, the meeting tent with its covering, and the outer wrapping of tahash skin, the curtain at the entrance of the meeting tent, the hangings of the court, the curtain at the entrance of the court that encloses both the dwelling and the altar, together with their ropes and all other objects necessary in their use. Whatever is to be done with these things shall be their task. The service of the Gershonites shall be entirely under the direction of Aaron and his sons with regard to what they must do and what they must carry. You shall make each man of them responsible for what he is to carry. This then is the task of the Gershonites in the meeting tent, and they shall be under the supervision of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Among the Merarites too, you shall enroll by clans and ancestral houses all their men between 30 and 50 years of age. These are to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. This is what they shall be responsible for carrying all the years of their service in the meeting tent: the boards of the dwelling with its bars, columns, and pedestals, and the columns of the surrounding court with their pedestals, pegs, and ropes. You shall designate for each man of them all the objects connected with his service, which he shall be responsible for carrying. This, then, is the task of the clans of the Merarites during all their service in the meeting tent, under the supervision of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. So Moses and Aaron and the princes of the community made a registration among the Kohathites by clans and ancestral houses of all the men between 30 and 50 years of age. These were to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. As registered by clans, they numbered 2,750. Such was the census of all the men of the Kohathite clans who were to serve in the meeting tent, which Moses took together with Aaron, as the Lord bade him. The registration was then made among the Gershonites by clans and ancestral houses of all the men between 30 and 50 years of age. These were to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. As registered by clans and ancestral houses, they numbered 2,630. Such was the census of all the men of the Gershonite clans who were to serve in the meeting tent, which Moses took together with Aaron at the Lord's bidding. Then the registration was made among the Merarites by clans and ancestral houses of all the men from 30 up to 50 years of age. These were to undertake obligatory tasks in the meeting tent. As registered by clans, they numbered 3,200. Such was the census of the men of the Merarite clans, which Moses took, together with Aaron, as the Lord bade him. Therefore, when Moses and Aaron and the Israelites' princes had completed the registration among the Levites by clans and ancestral houses of all the men between 30 and 50 years of age who were to undertake tasks of service or transports of the meeting tent, the total number registered was 8,580. According to the Lord's bidding to Moses, they gave them their individual assignments for service and for transport. So, the Lord had commanded Moses. Numbers chapter 5. The Lord said to Moses, "Order the Israelites to expel from camp every leper, and everyone suffering from a discharge, and everyone who has become unclean by contact with a corpse. Male and female alike, you shall compel them to go out of the camp. They are not to defile the camp in which I dwell." The Israelites obeyed the command that the Lord had given Moses. They expelled them from the camp. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, if a man or a woman commits a fault against his fellow man and wrongs him, thus breaking faith with the Lord, he shall confess the wrong he has done, restore his ill-gotten goods in full, and in addition, give 1/5 of their value to the one he has wronged. However, if the latter has no next of kin to whom restoration of the ill-gotten goods can be made, the goods to be restored shall be the Lord's, and shall fall to the priest. This is apart from the atonement ram with which the priest makes amends for the guilty man. Likewise, every sacred contribution that the Israelites are bound to make shall fall to the priest. Each Israelite man may dispose of his own sacred contributions. They become the property of the priest to whom he gives them. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, if a man's wife goes astray and becomes unfaithful to him by having intercourse with another man, though her husband has not sufficient evidence of the facts, so that her impurity remains unproved for lack of a witness who might have caught her in the act, or if a man is overcome by a feeling of jealousy that makes him suspect his wife, whether she was actually impure or not, he shall bring his wife to the priest and shall take along as an offering for her 1/10 of an ephah of barley meal. However, he shall not pour oil on it, nor put frankincense over it, since it is a cereal offering of jealousy, a cereal offering for an appeal in a question of guilt. The priest shall first have the woman come forward and stand before the Lord. In an earthen vessel, he shall meanwhile put some holy water, as well as some dust that he has taken from the floor of the dwelling. Then, as the woman stands before the Lord, the priest shall uncover her head and place in her hands the cereal offering of her appeal, that is, the cereal offering of jealousy, while he himself shall hold the bitter water that brings a curse. Then he shall adjure the woman, saying to her, "If no other man has had intercourse with you, and you have not gone astray by impurity while under the authority of your husband, be immune to the curse brought by this bitter water. But if you have gone astray while under the authority of your husband, and have acted impurely by letting a man other than your husband have intercourse with you, so shall the priest adjure the woman with this oath of imprecation. May the Lord make you an example of malediction and imprecation among your people by causing your thighs to waste away and your belly to swell. May this water then that brings a curse enter your body to make your belly swell and your thighs waste away." And the woman shall say, "Amen, amen." The priest shall put these imprecations in writing and shall then wash them off into the bitter water, which he is to have the woman drink, so that it may go into her with all its bitter curse. But first he shall take the cereal offering of jealousy from the woman's hand, and having waved this offering before the Lord, shall put it near the altar, where he shall take a handful of the cereal offering as its token offering, and burn it on the altar. Only then shall he have the woman drink the water. Once she has done so, if she has been impure and unfaithful to her husband, this bitter water that brings a curse will go into her, and her belly will swell, and her thighs will waste away, so that she will become an example of imprecation among her people. If, however, the woman has not defiled herself, but is still pure, she will be immune and will still be able to bear children. This, then, is the law for jealousy. When a woman goes astray while under the authority of her husband and acts impurely, or when such a feeling of jealousy comes over a man that he becomes suspicious of his wife, he shall have her stand before the Lord, and the priest shall apply this law in full to her. The man shall be free from guilt, but the woman shall bear such guilt as she may have. Numbers chapter 6. The Lord said to Moses, Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when a man or a woman solemnly takes the Nazirite vow to dedicate himself to the Lord, he shall abstain from wine and strong drink. He may neither drink wine vinegar, other vinegar of any kind of grape juice, nor eat either fresh or dried grapes. As long as he is a Nazirite, he shall not eat anything of the produce of the vine, not even unripe grapes or grape skins. While he is under the Nazirite vow, no razor shall touch his hair. Until the period of his dedication to the Lord is over, he shall be sacred and shall let the hair of his head grow freely. As long as he is dedicated to the Lord, he shall not enter where a dead person is, not even for his father or mother, his sister or brother. Should they die, may he become unclean, since his head bears his dedication to God. As long as he is a Nazirite, he is sacred to the Lord. If someone dies very suddenly in his presence, so that his dedicated head becomes unclean, he shall shave his head on the day of his purification, that is, on the 7th day. On the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the meeting tent. The priest shall offer up the one as a sin offering, and the other as a holocaust, thus making atonement for him for the sin he has committed by reason of the dead person. On the same day he shall reconsecrate his head, and begin anew the period of his dedication to the Lord as a Nazirite, bringing a yearling lamb as a guilt offering. The previous period is not valid, because his dedicated head became unclean. This is the ritual for the Nazirite. On the day he completes the period of his dedication, he shall go to the entrance of the meeting tent, bringing as his offering to the Lord 1 unblemished yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 unblemished yearling, ewe lamb for a sin offering, 1 unblemished ram as a peace offering, along with their cereal offerings and libations, and a basket of unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, and of unleavened wafers spread with oil. The priest shall present them before the Lord, and shall offer up the sin offering and the holocaust for him. He shall then offer up the ram as a peace offering to the Lord, with its cereal offering and libation, and the basket of unleavened cakes. Then, at the entrance of the meeting tent, the Nazirite shall shave his dedicated head, collect the hair, and put it in the fire that is under the peace offering. After the Nazirite has shaved off his dedicated hair, the priest shall take a boiled shoulder of the ram, as well as 1 unleavened cake and 1 unleavened wafer from the basket, and shall place them in the hands of the Nazirite. The priest shall then wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. They become sacred and shall belong to the priest, along with the breasts of the wave offering and the leg of the raised offering. Only after this may the Nazirite drink wine. This then is the law for the Nazirite. This is the offering to the Lord, which is included in his vow of dedication, apart from anything else which his means may allow. Thus shall he carry out the law of his dedication, in keeping with the vow he has taken. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons and tell them, this is how you shall bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So shall they invoke my name upon the Israelites, and I will bless them." Numbers chapter 7. Now, when Moses had completed the erection of the dwelling, and had anointed and consecrated it with all its equipment, as well as the altar with all its equipment, an offering was made by the princes of Israel, who are heads of ancestral houses. the same princes of the tribes who supervised the census. The offering they brought before the Lord consisted of 6 baggage wagons and 12 oxen, that is, a wagon for every 2 princes, and an ox for every prince. These they presented as their offering before the dwelling. The Lord then said to Moses, "Accept their offering, that these things may be put to use in the service of the meeting tent. Assign them to the Levites, to each group in proportion to its duties." So Moses accepted the wagons and oxen and assigned them to the Levites. He gave 2 wagons and 4 oxen to the Gershonites in proportion to their duties, and 4 wagons and 8 oxen to the Merarites in proportion to their duties under the supervision of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. He gave none to the Kohathites, because they had to carry on their shoulders the sacred objects which were their charge. For the dedication of the altar also, the princes brought offerings before the altar on the day it was anointed. But the Lord said to Moses, "Let 1 prince a day present his offering for the dedication of the altar." The one who presented his offering on the first day was Nahshon, son of Amminadab, prince of the tribe of Judah. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Nahshon, son of Amminadab. On the second day, Nethanel, son of Zuar, prince of Issachar, made his offering. He presented as his offering 1 silver plate weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Nethanel, son of Zuar. On the third day, it was the turn of Eliab, son of Helon, prince of the Zebulunites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Eliab, son of Helon. On the 4th day, it was the turn of Elizur, son of Shedeur, prince of the Reubenites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour, mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Elizur, son of Shedeur. On the 5th day, it was the turn of Shalumiel, son of Zurishaddai, prince of the Simeonites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering, 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. On the 6th day, it was the turn of Eliasaph, son of Roel, prince of the Gadites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Eliasaph, son of Ruel. On the 7th day, it was the turn of Elishama, son of Ammihud, prince of the Ephraimites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Elishama, son of Ammihud. On the 8th day, it was the turn of Gamaliel, son of Pedahzur, prince of the Manasseites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Gamaliel, son of Pedahzur. On the 9th day, it was the turn of Abidan, son of Gideoni, prince of the Benjaminites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Abidan, son of Gideoni. On the 10th day, it was the turn of Ahazah, son of Ammishaddai, prince of the Danites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour, mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Ahizah, son of Ammishaddai. On the 11th day, it was the turn of Pagiel, son of Okran, prince of the Asherites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate, weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin, weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, one young bull, one ram, and one yearling lamb for a holocaust, one goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Pagiel, son of Ochran. On the 12th day, it was the turn of Ahira, son of Enan, prince of the Naphtalites. His offering consisted of 1 silver plate weighing 130 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard, and 1 silver basin weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a cereal offering. 1 gold cup of 10 shekels weight, filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 yearling lamb for a holocaust, 1 goat for a sin offering, and 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 goats, and 5 yearling lambs for a peace offering. This was the offering of Ahira, son of Enan. These were the offerings for the dedication of the altar given by the princes of Israel on the occasion of its anointing: 12 silver plates, 12 silver basins, and 12 gold cups. Each silver plate weighed 130 shekels, and each silver basin 70, so that all the silver of these vessels amounted to 2,400 shekels, according to the sanctuary standard. The 12 gold cups that were filled with incense weighed 10 shekels apiece, according to the sanctuary standard, so that all the gold of the cups amounted to 120 shekels. The animals for the holocausts were in all 12 young bulls, 12 rams, and 12 yearling lambs, with their cereal offerings. Those for the sin offerings were 12 goats. The animals for the peace offerings were in all 24 oxen, 60 rams, 60 goats, and 60 yearling lambs. These then were the offerings for the dedication of the altar after it was anointed. When Moses entered the meeting tent to speak with him, he heard the voice addressing him from above the propitiatory on the Ark of the Commandments, from between the 2 cherubim. And it spoke to him. Numbers chapter 8. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "Give Aaron this command. When you set up the 7 lamps, have them throw their light toward the front of the lampstand." Aaron did so, setting up the lamps to face toward the front of the lampstand, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The lampstand was made of beaten gold in both its shaft and its branches, according to the pattern which the Lord had shown Moses. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the Levites from among the Israelites and purify them. This is what you shall do to them to purify them. Sprinkle them with the water of remission, then have them shave their whole bodies and wash their clothes, and so purify themselves. They shall take a young bull along with its cereal offering of fine flour mixed with oil. You shall take another young bull for a sin offering. Then have the Levites come forward in front of the meeting tent, where you shall assemble also the whole community of the Israelites. While the Levites are present before the Lord, the Israelites shall lay their hands upon them. Let Aaron then offer the Levites before the Lord as a wave offering from the Israelites, thus devoting them to the service of the Lord. The Levites in turn shall lay their hands on the heads of the bullocks, which shall then be immolated, the one as a sin offering and the other as a holocaust to the Lord, in atonement for the Levites. Thus then shall you have the Levites stand before Aaron and his sons, to be offered as a wave offering to the Lord. And thus shall you set aside the Levites from the rest of the Israelites, that they may be mine. Only then shall the Levites enter upon their service in the meeting tent. You shall purify them and offer them as a wave offering. because they, among the Israelites, are strictly dedicated to me. I have taken them for myself in place of every firstborn that opens the womb among the Israelites. Indeed, all the firstborn among the Israelites, both of man and of beast, belong to me. I consecrated them to myself on the day I slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. But in place of all the firstborn Israelites, I have taken the Levites, and I have given these dedicated Israelites to Aaron and his sons to discharge the duties of the Israelites in the meeting tent and to make atonement for them, so that no plague may strike among the Israelites should they come near the sanctuary. Thus then, did Moses and Aaron and the whole community of the Israelites deal with the Levites, carrying out exactly the command which the Lord had given Moses concerning them. When the Levites had cleansed themselves of sin and washed their clothes, Aaron offered them as a wave offering before the Lord and made atonement for them to purify them. Only then did they enter upon their service in the meeting tent under the supervision of Aaron and his sons. The command which the Lord had given Moses concerning the Levites was carried out. The Lord said to Moses, "This is the rule for the Levites. Each from his 25th year onward shall perform the required service in the meeting tent. When he is 50 years old, he shall retire from the required service and work no longer. His service with his fellow Levites shall consist in sharing their responsibilities in the meeting tent, but he shall not do the work. This then is how you are to regulate the duties of the Levites." Numbers chapter 9. In the first month of the year following their departure from the land of Egypt, the Lord said to Moses in the desert of Sinai, "Tell the Israelites to celebrate the Passover at the prescribed time. The evening twilight of the 14th day of this month is the prescribed time when you shall celebrate it, observing all its rules and regulations." Moses therefore told the Israelites to celebrate the Passover, and they did so, celebrating the Passover in the desert of Sinai during the evening twilight of the 14th day of the first month, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. There were some, however, who were unclean because of a human corpse, and so could not keep the Passover that day. These men came up to Moses and Aaron that same day and said, "Although we are unclean because of a corpse, why should we be deprived of presenting the Lord's offering at its proper time along with the other Israelites?" Moses answered them, "Wait until I learn what the Lord will command in your regard." The Lord then said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say, if any one of you or of your descendants is unclean because of a corpse, or if he is absent on a journey, he may still keep the Lord's Passover. But he shall keep it in the second month, during the evening twilight of the 14th day of that month, eating it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and not leaving any of it over till morning, nor breaking any of its bones, but observing all the rules of the Passover. However, anyone who is clean and not away on a journey, who yet fails to keep the Passover, shall be cut off from his people, because he did not present the Lord's offering at the prescribed time. That man shall bear the consequences of his sin. If an alien who lives among you wishes to keep the Lord's Passover, he too shall observe the rules and regulations for the Passover. You shall have the same law for the resident alien as for the native of the land. On the day when the dwelling was erected, the cloud covered the dwelling, the tent of the commandments. But from evening until morning, it took on the appearance of fire over the dwelling. It was always so. During the day, the dwelling was covered by the cloud, which at night had the appearance of fire. Whenever the cloud rose from the tent, the Israelites would break camp. Wherever the cloud came to rest, they would pitch camp. At the bidding of the Lord, the Israelites moved on, and at his bidding, they encamped. As long as the cloud stayed over the dwelling, they remained in camp. Even when the cloud tarried many days over the dwelling, the Israelites obeyed the Lord and would not move on. Yet sometimes the cloud was over the dwelling only for a few days. It was at the bidding of the Lord that they stayed in camp, and it was at his bidding that they departed. Sometimes the cloud remained there only from evening until morning, and when it rose in the morning, they would depart. Or if the cloud lifted during the day or even at night, they would then set out. Whether the cloud tarried over the dwelling for 2 days or for a month or longer, the Israelites remained in camp and did not depart. But when it lifted, they moved on. Thus, it was always at the bidding of the Lord that they encamped, and at his bidding that they set out, ever heeding the charge of the Lord as he had bidden them through Moses. Numbers chapter 10. The Lord said to Moses, "Make 2 trumpets of beaten silver, which you shall use in assembling the community and in breaking camp. When both are blown, the whole community shall gather round you at the entrance of the meeting tent. But when one of them is blown, only the princes, the chiefs of the troops of Israel, shall gather round you. When you sound the first alarm, those encamped on the east side shall set out. When you sound the second alarm, those encamped on the south side shall set out. When you sound the third alarm, those encamped on the west side shall set out. When you sound the fourth alarm, those encamped on the north side shall set out. Thus shall the alarm be sounded for them to depart. But in calling forth an assembly, you are to blow an ordinary blast, without sounding the alarm. It is the sons of Aaron, the priests, who shall blow the trumpets, and the use of them is prescribed by perpetual statute for you and your descendants. When in your own land you go to war against an enemy that is attacking you, you shall sound the alarm on the trumpets, and the Lord your God will remember you and save you from your foes. On your days of celebration, your festivals, and your new moon feasts, you shall blow the trumpets over your holocausts and your peace offerings. This will serve as a reminder of you before your God. I, the Lord, am your God. In the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, the cloud rose from the dwelling of the commandments. The Israelites moved on from the desert of Sinai by stages until the cloud came to rest in the desert of Paran. The first time that they broke camp at the bidding of the Lord through Moses, the camp of the Judahites, under its own standard and arranged and companies, was the first to set out. Nashon, son of Aminadab, was over their host, and Nathanael, son of Zuar, over the host of the tribe of Issachar, and Eliab, son of Helon, over the host of the tribe of Zebulun. Then, after the dwelling was dismantled, the clans of Gershon and Merari set out, carrying the dwelling. The camp of the Reubenites, under his own standard and arranged in companies, was the next to set out, with Elisur, son of Shedeur, over their hosts, and Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai, over the host of the tribe of Simeon, and Eliasaph, son of Roel, over the host of the tribe of Gad. The clan of Kohath then set out, carrying the sacred objects for the dwelling, which was to be erected before their arrival. The camp of the Ephraimites next set out, under its own standard and arranged in companies, with Elishama, son of Amihud, over their host, and Gamaliel, son of Pedachsur, over the host of the tribe of Manasseh, and Abidan, son of Gideoni, over the host of the tribe of Benjamin. Finally, as rear guard for all the camps, the camp of the Danites set out, under its own standard and arranged in companies, with Ahizah, son of Ammishaddai, over their hosts, and Pagiel, son of Okran, over the host of the tribe of Asher, and Ahira, son of Enan, over the host of the tribe of Naphtali. This was the order of departure for the Israelites, company by company. As they were setting out, Moses said to his brother-in-law Hobab, son of Reuel the Midianite, "We are setting out for the place which the Lord has promised to give us. Come with us, and we will be generous toward you, for the Lord has promised prosperity to Israel." But he answered, "No, I will not come. I am going instead to my own country and to my own kindred." Moses said, "Please do not leave us. You know where we can camp in the desert, and you will serve as eyes for us. If you come with us, we will share with you the prosperity the Lord will bestow on us." They moved on from the mountain of the Lord, a 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord, which was to seek out their resting place, went the 3 days' journey with them. And when they set out from camp, the cloud of the Lord was over them by day. Whenever the ark set out, Moses would say, "Arise, O Lord, that your enemies may be scattered, and those who hate you may flee before you." And when it came to rest, he would say, "Return, O Lord, you who ride upon the clouds, to the troops of Israel." Numbers chapter 11. Now the people complained in the hearing of the Lord, and when he heard it, his wrath flared up, so that the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. But when the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died out. Hence that place was called Taberah, because there the fire of the Lord burned among them. The foreign elements among them were so greedy for meat that even the Israelites lamented again, "Would that we had meat for food! We remember the fish we used to eat without cost in Egypt, and the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now we are famished. We see nothing before us but this manna." Manna was like coriander seed and had the appearance of bdellium. When they had gone about and gathered it up, the people would grind it between millstones or pound it in a mortar, then cook it in a pot and make it into loaves which tasted like cakes made with oil. At night, when the dew fell upon the camp, the manna also fell. When Moses heard the people, family after family, crying at the entrance of their tents, so that the Lord became very angry. He was grieved. "Why do you treat your servant so badly?" Moses asked the Lord. "Why are you so displeased with me that you burden me with all these people? Was it I who conceived all these people? Or was it I who gave them birth, that you tell me to carry them at my bosom like a foster father carrying an infant to the land you have promised under oath to their fathers? Where can I get meat to give to all these people? For they are crying to me, 'Give us meat for our food.' I cannot carry all these people by myself, for they are too heavy for me. If this is the way you will deal with me, then please do me the favor of killing me at once, so that I need no longer face this distress." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Assemble for me 70 of the elders of Israel, men you know for true elders and authorities among the people, and bring them to the meeting tent. When they are in place beside you, I will come down and speak with you there. I will also take some of the Spirit that is on you and will bestow it on them, that they may share the burden of the people with you. You will then not have to bear it by yourself. To the people, however, you shall say, Sanctify yourselves for tomorrow, when you shall have meat to eat. For in the hearing of the Lord you have cried, Would that we had meat for food! Oh, how well off we were in Egypt! Therefore, the Lord will give you meat for food, and you will eat it, not for 1 day, or 2 days, or 5, or 10, or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it come out of your very nostrils and becomes loathsome to you. For you have spurned the Lord who is in your midst, and in his presence you have wailed, Why did we ever leave Egypt? But Moses said, The people around me include 600,000 soldiers, yet you say, I will give them meat to eat for a whole month. Can enough sheep and cattle be slaughtered for them? If all the fish of the sea were caught for them, would they have enough? The Lord answered Moses, Is this beyond the Lord's reach? You shall see now whether or not what I have promised you takes place. So Moses went out and told the people what the Lord had said. Gathering 70 elders of the people, he had them stand around the tent. The Lord then came down in the cloud and spoke to him. Taking some of the Spirit that was on Moses, he bestowed it on the 70 elders. And as the Spirit came to rest on them, they prophesied. Now 2 men, one named Eldad and the other Medad, were not in the gathering, but had been left in the camp. They too had been on the lists, but had not gone out to the tent. Yet the Spirit came to rest on them also, and they prophesied in the camp. So, when a young man quickly told Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp, Joshua, son of Nun, who from his youth had been Moses' aide, said, Moses, my lord, stop them. But Moses answered him, Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the people of the Lord were prophets? Would that the Lord might bestow his Spirit on them all. Then Moses retired to the camp along with the elders of Israel. There arose a wind sent by the Lord that drove in quail from the sea and brought them down over the campsite at a height of 2 cubits from the ground for the distance of a day's journey all around the camp. All that day, all night, and all the next day the people gathered in the quail. Even the one who got the least gathered 10 homers of them. Then they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it could be consumed, the Lord's wrath flared up against the people, and he struck them with a very great plague. So that place was named Kibroth Hattava, because it was there that the greedy people were buried. From Kibroth Hattava, the people set out for Hazeroth. Numbers chapter 12. While they were in Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses on the pretext of the marriage he had contracted with a Cushite woman. They complained, Is it through Moses alone that the Lord speaks? Does he not speak through us also? And the Lord heard this. Now, Moses himself was by far the meekest man on the face of the earth. So, at once the Lord said to Moses and Aaron and Miriam, Come out, you 3, to the meeting tent. And the 3 of them went. Then the Lord came down in the column of cloud, and standing at the entrance of the tent, called Aaron and Miriam. When both came forward, he said, Now listen to the words of the Lord. Should there be a prophet among you, in visions will I reveal myself to him. In dreams will I speak to him. Not so with my servant Moses. Throughout my house he bears my trust. Face to face I speak to him, plainly and not in riddles. The presence of the Lord he beholds. Why then did you not fear to speak against my servant Moses? So angry was the Lord against them, that when he departed, and the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam, a snow-white leper. When Aaron turned and saw her, a leper, "Ah, my Lord," he said to Moses, "please do not charge us with the sin that we have foolishly committed. Let her not thus be like the stillborn babe that comes forth from its mother's womb with its flesh half consumed." Then Moses cried to the Lord, "Please, not this. Pray, heal her." But the Lord answered Moses, "Suppose her father had spit in her face, would she not hide in shame for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. Only then may she be brought back." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not start out again until she was brought back. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and encamped in the desert of Paran. Numbers chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses, "Send men to reconnoiter the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. You shall send one man from each ancestral tribe, all of them princes." So Moses dispatched them from the desert of Paran, as the Lord had ordered. All of them were leaders among the Israelites. By name they were Shammua, son of Zaccur, of the tribe of Reuben; Shaphat, son of Hori, of the tribe of Simeon; Caleb, son of Jephunneh, of the tribe of Judah; Igal, son of Joseph, of the tribe of Issachar; Hoshea, son of Nun, of the tribe of Ephraim; Palti, son of Raphu, of the tribe of Benjamin; Gadiel, son of Sodi, of the tribe of Zebulun; Gadi, son of Susi, of the tribe of Manasseh, for the Josephites, with Amiel, son of Gemali, of the tribe of Dan; Sethur, son of Michael, of the tribe of Asher; Nabi, son of Vophsi, of the tribe of Naphtali; Guel, son of Machi, of the tribe of Gad. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent out to reconnoiter the land. But Hoshea, son of Nun, Moses called Joshua. In sending them to reconnoiter the land of Canaan, Moses said to them, "Go up here in the Negeb, up into the highlands, and see what kind of land it is. Are the people living there strong or weak, few or many? Is the country in which they live good or bad? Are the towns in which they dwell open or fortified? Is the soil fertile or barren, wooded or clear? And do your best to get some of the fruit of the land." It was then the season for early grapes, so they went up and reconnoitered the land from the desert of Zin as far as where Rehob adjoins Labo of Hamath. Going up by way of the Negeb, they reached Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, descendants of the Anakim, were living. Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. They also reached the Wadi Eshkol, where they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes on it, which 2 of them carried on a pole, as well as some pomegranates and figs. It was because of the cluster the Israelites cut there that they called the place Wadi Eshkol. After reconnoitering the land for 40 days, they returned, met Moses and Aaron and the whole community of the Israelites in the desert of Paran at Kadesh, made a report to them all, and showed them the fruit of the country. They told Moses, "We went into the land to which you sent us. It does indeed flow with milk and honey, and here is its fruit. However, the people who are living in the land are fierce, and the towns are fortified and very strong. Besides, we saw descendants of the Anakim there. Amalekites live in the region of the Negeb. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwell in the highlands, and Canaanites along the seacoast and the banks of the Jordan." Caleb, however, to quiet the people toward Moses, said, "We ought to go up and seize the land, for we can certainly do so." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We cannot attack these people. They are too strong for us." So they spread discouraging reports among the Israelites about the land they had scouted, saying, "The land that we explored is a country that consumes its inhabitants. And all the people we saw there are huge men, veritable giants. The Anakim were a race of giants. We felt like mere grasshoppers, and so we must have seemed to them." Numbers chapter 14. At this, the whole community broke out with loud cries, and even in the night the people wailed. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, the whole community saying to them, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or that here in the desert we were dead. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land only to have us fall by the sword? Our wives and little ones will be taken as booty. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us appoint a leader and go back to Egypt." But Moses and Aaron fell prostrate before the whole assembled community of the Israelites, while Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who had been in the party that scouted the land, tore their garments and said to the whole community of the Israelites, "The country which we went through and explored is a fine, rich land. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us in and give us that land, a land flowing with milk and honey. But do not rebel against the Lord. You need not be afraid of the people of that land. They are but food for us. Their defense has left them, but the Lord is with us. Therefore, do not be afraid of them." In answer, the whole community threatened to stone them. But then the glory of the Lord appeared at the meeting tent to all the Israelites. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will this people spurn me? How long will they refuse to believe in me, despite all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them with pestilence and wipe them out. Then I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they." But Moses said to the Lord, "Are the Egyptians to hear of this? For by your power you brought out this people from among them. And are they to tell of it to the inhabitants of this land? It has been heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of this people. You, Lord, who plainly reveal yourself. Your cloud stands over them, and you go before them by day in a column of cloud, and by night in a column of fire. If now you slay this whole people, the nations who have heard such reports of you will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he swore to give them. That is why he slaughtered them in the desert.' Now then, let the power of my Lord be displayed in its greatness, even as you have said. The Lord is slow to anger and rich in kindness, forgiving wickedness and crime, yet not declaring the guilty guiltless, but punishing children to the third and fourth generation for their father's wickedness. Pardon then the wickedness of this people in keeping with your great kindness, even as you have forgiven them from Egypt until now." The Lord answered, "I pardon them as you have asked. Yet by my life and the Lord's glory that fills the whole earth, of all the men who have seen my glory, and the signs I worked in Egypt and in the desert, and who nevertheless have put me to the test 10 times already, and have failed to heed my voice, not one shall see the land which I promised on oath to their fathers. None of these who have spurned me shall see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me unreservedly, I will bring him into the land where he has just been, and his descendants shall possess it. But now, since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn away tomorrow and set out in the desert on the Red Sea road. The Lord also said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the grumblings of the Israelites against me. Tell them, by my life, says the Lord, I will do to you just what I have heard you say. Here in the deserts shall your dead bodies fall, of all your men of 20 years or more, registered in the census, who grumbled against me. Not one shall enter the land where I solemnly swore to settle you, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. Your little ones, however, who you said would be taken as booty, I will bring in, and they shall appreciate the land you spurned. But as for you, your bodies shall fall here in the desert, here where your children must wander for 40 years, suffering for your faithlessness, till the last of you lies dead in the desert. 40 days you spent in scouting the land. 40 years shall you suffer for your crimes, 1 year for each day. Thus you will realize what it means to oppose me. I, the Lord, have sworn to do this to all this wicked community that conspired against me. Here in the desert they shall die to the last man. And so it happened to the men whom Moses had sent to reconnoiter the land, and who, on returning, had set the whole community grumbling against him by spreading discouraging reports about the land. These men, who had given out the bad report about the land, were struck down by the Lord and died. Of all the men who had gone to reconnoiter the land, only Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, survived.